Hi, I'm Chris Levy, technical partner at Aquila Super. Look, next up in our little briefings, and this is perhaps going to be not such a brief briefing, is the subject of valuations of businesses, of unlisted companies and trusts. And look, they're not common. Most SMSFs don't engage in this, but every client firm has a couple of funds that do. They invest in these little unlisted listed entities, and what we've been finding is that when it comes to audit time, they are causing a bit of grief, and there's a lot of questions about what's suitable, what does the ATO expect, and look, that's what I just very briefly want to talk about today. I guess part of the problem with the valuations of these types of entities is that I guess if you think about it, the sort of scenarios, whether you're talking about the types of businesses, the stage of the business, where they are, whether they're matured or starting new, the number of investors, they're so diverse. It's almost an unlimited number of different scenarios or variations that to actually put it into sort of like a spreadsheet and say, look, this is what you need. It usually doesn't work. And as a consequence of that, the ATO have been a little bit vague about what their expectations are, but we have been able to get, they have put out some guidance, and through their actions and commentary, we'll sort of be able to pick up some other, guidelines as well, some barriers as to what's required. So, look, I guess the first thing I'd say is that the ATO are still very much about having objective and sufficient evidence on the audit file, and it's provided to the auditor by the accountant. In the old days, like a simple couple of lines from the investment manager, even in an email saying, look, this is what we think it's worth, and maybe this is what it is. That was fine. ATO accepted that, but look, not quite. We can't rely on that anymore. Look, I know some auditors do, and I've actually heard some ATO officers accept that. I'm not comfortable with that based on some other sort of commentary we've had. So, look, I think one of the best things that an accountant or a trustee can have when it comes to these unlisted entities is an actual sale that's happened relatively recently, say within the last 12 months. And that sale, obviously it's got to be between unrelated parties. Sort of the selling of some shares or units in this entity, between two parties. Look, that's great. And another one that's quite common, more common than the actual share transfers, a capital raising. The whatever business it is, they need more money. They go to the market, and there's a price that's been established. And look, that's pretty solid. It's clear evidence of what other investors think the value of this entity is, and that's very strong. And look, if there's evidence of that will sort of inform what the market value for that for this investment. Now, look, it's nice when you can get it, but it's quite uncommon, unfortunately, to actually see that. Most of these unlisted entities, investors will jump on, and then there's no activity for years. So you can't rely on that. So what's the next best type of evidence? And look, an investor briefing by the investment manager is great. Supported by financial statements or other financial data, that's excellent as well. And I think that's perfectly adequate. But now, unfortunately, and particularly for some of the smaller type investments, the investment managers won't get involved in valuations. They can't be bothered, or they sort of feel like they don't want to be held to account. They're sort of worried about, well, if they put out a valuation, somehow it's going to come back to them. So they basically don't really want to talk about it. Look, in that instance, it's basically going to fall upon the trustee, usually with the assistance of the accountant, to come up with a valuation, what they think a decent valuation is. And often, the accountant will fall back on the old multiplication of profit by a capitalization rate. And look, and that's fine. I mean, if you've got financials, you've got a capitalization rate which the rate selected is based upon what's out there in market. I think that's fairly solid, and it's certainly an arguable position. Yeah, when you're faced with just a lack of information, that's what you're going to have to do. I guess the other thing to bear in mind is that, look, I can see this is a pain in the neck. It will take hopefully no more than sort of 10-15 minutes of just crunching through the numbers and getting information. Unfortunately, look, it's what the ATO expect. It's what auditors are going to there's an expectation of auditors to have this on our file. So, look, and I guess, what I will say, final thing is, it boggles my mind how many, say, new audits will pick up, like funds that we haven't seen before, where the value of these unlisted investments hasn't shifted for many, many years. And when you quiz the trustee about it, you get multiple answers, but they all boil down to, look, it's too hard, and we're just going to leave it at cost. It's like a default thing. That doesn't fly anymore. ATO they don't like it, and they don't accept it. So you do have to, the value may not have changed year to year, but it's got to be based on some reasoning for that. Yeah, default position is, yeah, you probably do need well, you actually do need to sort of revisit it every year, and ideally that value does change year to year as well. The other point I want to make is, look, don't feel shy to reach out to the auditor while you're doing the accounts, while you're in the, putting it together and saying, look, this is what we're thinking. Does this sound right? Rather than wait right to the end of the audit, and then it becomes a bit of a problem, and you might have to go back and redo the accounts, and it can be a bit messy. But final thing I want to leave everyone with today is, look, this is just a very brief overview. It's a very tricky issue, granted, but look, hopefully you've got an understanding of where we're coming from, where the ATO is coming from, what's needed. But yeah, look, it probably needs a much bigger discussion, but hopefully you've got an idea as to what's going on. Thank you.